The story that built your success? Maybe the story that is burning you out. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because the beliefs that helped you become successful, like, I have to be the strong one, or if I don't do it, it won't get done, and everyone depends on me, can quietly become the very patterns that leave you exhausted. On the Trust Tax Investigation, we're discovering how these stories shape the way we work and lead. Then on October 15th, comedian Merritt Khan and I invite you to rewrite your story. The podcast helps you understand the story you've been living. Rewrite Your Story helps you choose the one you'll live next. Learn more at rewriteyourstoryevent.com. If you only remember one thing from this week, remember this. Burnout doesn't begin the day you feel exhausted. It begins long before that. Welcome back to the Trust Tax Investigation. Over the past week, we've been asking a simple question. When does success stop feeling like success and it feels like a trap? Since July 20th, you've heard 3 remarkable conversations with Danielle Griffin, Zoe Thompson, and Sandra Wood. 3 different careers, 3 different life stories, yet they all describe the same invisible turning point. Not burnout, not collapse. The moment they realize, I can't keep doing it this way. Danielle reminded us that our bodies often recognize the cost before our minds do. Zoe showed us from the outside things could look good, but internally something doesn't align, and achievement alone isn't enough. Sandra revealed how easy it is to spend years performing a version of ourselves that the world expects while losing touch with the person underneath. Different stories, the same realization. Something had changed. If you haven't listened to those conversations yet, I encourage you to go back and start there. They lay the foundation for everything we're about to explore. Because this week, our investigation takes a different turn. We're no longer asking what happened. We're asking why. Why do intelligent, capable, caring people slowly become disconnected from themselves? Why do we normalize carrying more and more responsibility until it simply feels like it's who we are? Why does burnout seem to surprise us when in reality the clues have been there all along? This week you'll hear from 3 extraordinary guests who approach the questions from very different perspectives. Hanna Curman, Melanie Gray, and Angela Couric. Different disciplines, different expertise. Yet together, they reveal something remarkable. Burnout isn't caused by one bad day. It's the result of patterns that quietly shape how we think, how we lead, and how we respond to the world around us. Today, Hanna Curman helps us understand how belonging and psychological safety shape the way we carry responsibility. Let's get started. Looking back, were you paying that tax or were you doing something else? And what's the difference?
That is really a beautiful question. And I think that we should place that question to ourselves more in our daily lives. Because I think that the answer, it's really not an easy answer. And I think it depends a little bit on the situation as well. Because of course, I would say, yes, I was paying. And sometimes maybe not. It depends on. So you spoke about, or you introduced this with the Friday afternoons. Friday afternoons in Sweden, because that is where I am brought up and I still live. Friday afternoons in the business world, that is when you have your fika. And fika is when you're drinking coffee, you are doing the chat, you are talking about what happened during the week, and you're talking about what's going to happen during the weekend. And it always is during the Friday afternoon. Of course, there's a difference now after the pandemic when not all people are in at the office. But before the pandemic, it was Friday afternoon. And I have more or less my full professional life been working in positions where I might not have been belonging to a team by the office where I'm seated. And it was something that really came very clear to me. It must have been, when was it? Maybe 20 years ago, this situation that I'm going to talk about. And that is, then I had my office seats, my space at the office. It was just by the fika or the coffee machine. And by that also the fika room. And as everyone was coming there on Friday afternoons, taking their cup of coffee, having their chat, and I could hear those sounds, that the laughter, the belonging, the team spirit, all the chit chat that they had there. But as I did not belong to a team, I was not really invited.
Why?
And I did it from the beginning. I told myself that I don't care. I'm out traveling. I'm the global one. You are the local ones. I don't really care about you.
Mm.
You know, I'm the busy one. I'm the one that are seated on the airplanes, and you are just seated here in the coffee table. I try to to convince myself that I was in a higher position than they were. But of course I wasn't. And then I started to place meetings after Friday afternoons, because that also gave me a feeling of it was me taking the decision not to belong instead of me feeling excluded. So that was a part of a lot of things that were going around in my system back then. And we are talking about 20 years ago. So but I remember it as it was yesterday, because it is so stuck in your body. All those feelings are stuck in your body. So, yeah.
So what did going through that experience, what was the thing that caused it to come to a head, and why, how did that impact your life?
I think it impacted my life in such a way that I mean, this with the Friday afternoons, that was so obvious what I was doing then, that I put myself or took myself out of the uncomfort of not belonging. But also, as I was the one that was globally or working on a global arena, and the other ones that were in the same office as I was then, they were working locally. So that was also something that I was, in some sense, working in a different way. But also this with when you are, even though I can say by for sure 100% they did not exclude me. I was excluding myself. There is a big difference between excluding and including, but we can come back to that. But how it impacted the rest of my life, I was really, really longing for belonging. So wherever I was or whatever I did, I was really chasing belonging. I was chasing opportunities to feel that I am part of you. And I think that is the backside of that kind of position that I had. And it impacted me in the way that I got frustrated. I was sad. I was always in a very high speed. Quite often I was angry. I remember when my daughters were teenagers, and many years later when they were teenagers, and we had a dialogue and discussion, and they said to me that, yeah, but mama, you were always angry. And of course, as a mother, that is really not what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So a few single things that you, if you're not observant of those small things, it can have a huge impact on many parts in your life and really how you feel as well.
So one of the things that you said is that you had a perfect career on paper, as we talked about that, travel, you got to see lots of cultures, you were making an impact around the world, and you were yet still feeling angry and something was missing. In my research, I find that high performers in stage 2 of what I call a cascade of overperformance or not taking on the right level of responsibility start surface problems, and owning problem becomes a problem. Were you hiding something from yourself during those years, or were you like generally not seeing it yet, do you think?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Success opened the door. Burnout quietly followed you in. If today's conversation felt familiar, it's because burnout rarely begins with exhaustion. It begins with a story that says, I have to be the strong one. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Everyone depends on me. Those stories often create successful leaders, but over time, they become invisible patterns that keep responsibility routing back to you until success is feeling heavier than it should. That's exactly what we're uncovering in the Trust Tax Investigation. The podcast helps you understand the story you've been living. Rewrite Your Story helps you choose the one you'll live next. On October the 15th, join comedian Merritt Kahn and me at Walsh College in Troy, Michigan, for a transformational experience, unlike any leadership workshop you've attended. Together, we help you recognize the story shaping the way you work, lead, and carry responsibility. Decide which parts still serve you and release the ones that no longer do. The workshop helps you see your story. The comedy helps you let go of it, because you don't have to abandon your success. You simply need a story that lets you enjoy it. Learn more and reserve your seat at rewriteyourstoryevent.com.
You make me embarrassed. I am a high achiever. I would never admit that I was hiding anything. No, but really, yes, I do. I do believe that I can answer yes on both those things. I mean, there are things that I was not really, not yet aware of, that I am aware of today. And of course, when I got aware, I could make the changes as well. But also, I think that there were things that I was hiding, such as this need of belonging. I think that was the major thing that I was hiding, and not really giving myself the opportunity or giving myself the truth. Because when you say that you don't belong to someone, or that you feel that you don't belong to someone or somewhere, that also means that you are weird. That also means that you are not wanted. It also means that you are rejected. All those things that is really punishing yourself.
Love that you said what this means is, because I find, even for myself, is that when I'm feeling something not so great, here's an example of a situation. I put out some reports, and I realized that my initial report was not accurate. So I reissue a report to myself and I send it out. And I think to myself, well, perhaps, it would be helpful for someone to understand how I got here. So I provide the first report as well as the final report, the initial and the final. And the person only looked at the initial report, not the final, and then accused me of not doing the job. And it's like, what does this mean? I immediately got so defensive and I responded angrily. Like, how dare you accuse me of not doing my job right? And I have to take a step back. It's like, wait a minute. You did your job. They looked at the wrong report. They didn't look at everything thoroughly as they should have. My reaction, is like, what am I taking this to mean when they say blah, blah, blah? And that is the meaning of the meaning right there. Hannah, Melanie, and Angela aren't telling the same story. They're answering the same question. How do capable, caring people gradually become disconnected with themselves? Hannah reminds us that it begins when we spend more time living up to the expectations of others rather than listening to ourselves. Melanie explains what happens when our nervous systems adapt to the constant demand. High alert becomes normal until we no longer recognize what calm feels like. Angela explains how our identity quietly becomes tied to achievement and responsibility until caring more isn't just what you do, it's who you believe you are. Different perspectives, same explanation. Burnout isn't caused by a single event. It's the result of small adaptations that over time become the way we live. We stop listening to ourselves. Our nervous system learns that constant pressure is normal. Our identity becomes wrapped up in proving our value. None of it happens overnight. And that's exactly why so many people never see it coming. As we return to today's conversation, ask yourself, which of these adaptations have quietly become normal for me? Because once you understand how you got here, you can begin to choose a different path.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that I'm working with as I'm working with C-suites, high achievers, organizations, and leaders who are in a transformation. They want to take the next step, and they might get stuck in the way that they are doing and performing. And the first thing that I always do is to take them through the clarity chain, where we start with spot, decode, direct. That is something, a pattern that goes over and over and over again. First of all, spot. What is it that I'm feeling? Start to recognize your breath. Start to recognize your muscle tensions. Start to recognize how you're using your voice. Are you in a very, very high speed, or are you kind of soft and relaxed? But really to start to pay attention to all the signals that you have within your body, and when those are, let's talk about the breath. When do you have very shallow breathing, and when is it deep? Because that will give you a hint of what makes you nervous, what makes you anxious, what makes you angry, what makes you sad, and all those things. And that is the second part, where we are decoding. Okay, so now you know that when this kind of situation comes up, as you told me that someone told me that I did not do my job perfectly or correct, that triggered something in you, right?
Majorly.
And of course, when you start to recognize that, then we can also say, why does that situation trigger you? That is the decode part. Okay, so why does this trigger you? It might be something that you have been bullied for when you were a child, or it might have been something that your parents were expecting you to always perform and do the correct things. Hey, why did you not have 100% on your test? And then and also we know by fact now, by research, we know that it might be something that your ancestors might have been connected to or affected by, that will impact you as well, because our genes remember. Our genes remember several generations back. And I think that is so interesting.
Yes.
That is a specific recording, I guess. But just having that first spot. Okay, what is it? Start to recognize your feelings and triggers, and then see, okay, why does this situation or this, it can be a word, it can be a sound, it can be a smell, it can be a lot of different things that trigger something for you, and decode them and see, does this really belong to me or not? And as you know that, then you can direct. So that is the final part in the loop, in the clarity chain. Then you can direct and say that, yeah, let's keep this, because this is really a great trigger to have. Let's push it and use it forward. Or it might be something that this thinking pattern that I have, or this reaction that I tend to get, or whatever it might be, that is not good for me. And it's not good for my team. It's not good for my peer. It's not good for my family. It's not good for anyone. Well, then we can release it and put it in the wardrobe, or burn it up, or whatever. So when we're working with the clarity chain, those are the things that we go through over and over and over again. And depending on where we are in the maturity, in the transformation, we use it for different things.
Gotcha. So just going back to the original topic, so you were talking about leaders defaulting to overfunctioning, control, or avoidance when pressure rises, because there's some trigger. I call that overfunctioning versus the trust tax. The system routes unclaimed work to whoever will catch it, because maybe that person cannot stand to let things go. And the capable person absorbs it without a memo or a meeting. From a neuroscience standpoint, and also we can talk about the example that I brought forth, what is actually happening in that person's brain when they keep saying yes? And it's really a choice, or is it the nervous system already decided?
And I think that we need to go back to why, what the brain is really wired to do. There are only two things that the brain is wired to do. And that is, the first thing is to keep us alive. And the second thing is to reproduce. It's the only thing that we need to do, right? Yeah. And if we just look at the thing, how that is wired to make sure that we stay alive. And the easiest way to stay alive, that is to stay out of threat. So that is why the threat response is so strong. So I think that is just to understand that will also explain a lot of actions that we do. And here also, when we start to understand that, we can, and I will answer the question that you placed as well. But when we start to understand that, that is also when we can get rid of shame and guilt. Because we feel so guilty of so many things, and we are so ashamed of things that we are doing, right? And then we try to hide them. But if we can get rid of the shame and guilt and just say that, I did that because my brain is wired to keep me alive. That is the reason. It might not be that you have done the perfect thing, but it's a reaction from the nervous system. And what really happens is that if we stay with the thought that, yes, we are always constantly seeking for threats, that is the only thing that we are doing. We are seeking for threats to be able to stay alive. And when we are in a situation where we feel, as we do, many of us are in a very uncertain world right now.
Yes.
The uncertainty is really there around us, which means that we are in a constant threat mode, looking for patterns, looking for something that I can hold on to. Because my brain wants to see patterns. My brain wants to understand things. And to be able to do that, we are releasing cortisol up to the front front lobe, prefrontal cortex. So if the prefrontal cortex is the working memory and the machine, and it needs more fuel to be able to really look for all those threats and try to make logic out of things and try to find the patterns and try to solve things, then you will get this cortisol as to increase the blood flood in the brain. But that also means that your thinking will narrow down even more.
You'll be focused.
You will be focused because you're supposed to be focused. You're supposed to know exactly, okay, I just need to grab my baby and run the hell out of here because I am going to stay alive and I want to bring my kid with me.
Yes.
And when we are talking about kids at work, it's not our biological kids. We have other kids at work. And then I'm not talking about our team members. I'm talking about the task that we are responsible for, the things that I have created, my thoughts, what I am there for. Those are my babies.
My report.
Your report is your baby, and you will make sure that those reports are surviving. Yeah, and not questioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes 100% sense to me. I feel better after talking with you about the whole thing.
So the question, the way that I remember you placed the question is, what actually happens to us when we narrow the focus, and why do we do that? Was that more or less the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is happening is that you are just doing what you are supposed to do. The thing is that you need to start to recognize when you are doing it. So I'm coming back to this. I understand starting to recognize your own patterns. Try to start to see what is it around me that is threatening. And it's not the lion that is threatening to me, but it might be my boss, or it might be my peer that is constantly competing with me instead of supporting me.
Yes.
So there are so many different things in the business world that are constant threats for us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So once you are able to name that concept is so powerful. And what are some steps that you could take to let that go, do you think?
Well, you need, first of all, to be able to start to recognize those signals. If we should start with that, if you should start to recognize the signals, you need to be able to regulate yourself. As long as we are in a survival mode, I usually talk about that we are either in survival or thrive. When we are in survival mode, which we are 80% more or less, most of us during the day, then we don't have the ability really to spot those signals. So what we need to do is that we need to support ourselves to be in the thrive system. And to be able to be in the thrive system, then we need to be able to feel psychological safe. And then we are coming into the psychological safety at work. And there are so many great studies done by psychological safety and what it actually means to the work environment and what it means to us as humans and what it means to us as leaders and whatever. There are so many great researches there. What I find is quite often that we talk about it in a little bit too shallow way. That we are talking about that, everyone during the meeting, everyone should be able to speak up their mind.
Yes.
That's fine. That's fine. That's a starting point. But what about the hierarchies? What about the uncertainty? What about the relatedness? Coming back to me, my Friday afternoons. I was not in a psychological safe environment there, because if I were, I would have just taken my cup out to the room and said, "Hey, can I join?" But I wasn't, because it was not a psychological safe place to do that.
Was it not a psychological safe place to do it because of where you were, or was it the team, or was it a combination, do you think?
A combination, I would say, but I do believe that it was also a lot connected to me. And I don't think that I took the responsibility for myself in that during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean with that is that I did not take the responsibility for myself to really feel my feelings, speak my feelings, feel safe myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, and of course that goes back to childhood and the connections to my parents and all those things.
Right.
So it's when I'm talking about going deep down and work with psychological safety, I do believe that we need to work on the individual level as well as the team level. Just take the values as an example. One of my major values is trust, and there is a reason why trust has such a great impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
I have lost trust, I have gained trust, and I know the difference. So for me, wherever I'm stepping in, trust is extremely important for me, but I'm also very cautious about it. But for someone else, if you're talking about trust, it might be, I trust that you are releasing your report in time.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be something totally different.
So as you're working with C-suites, how do you also that particular value, is that something that you bring out with the folks that you're working with in the C-suite?
Yeah. When I'm working, I was talking about the clarity chain, which is the framework, and we have different steps there as well. And we're going through 15 different steps. And the first part is on the individual level, where you start to recognize your signals, you start to decode them, you start to understand them. We talk about what are your values? Why are those values important for you? What's your North Star? Why is that North Star? And all those things. And then also share them together, because when you are, and again, when you are vulnerable enough to be able to share your inner values and your North Star in your management team, that is when magic happens.
Gotcha. Yes.
So that is kind of the first part in those 15 different steps. And then the next module or part or whatever we want to call it, that is when we transfer it into the business environment. Okay. So what's your business environment or your business values? What's the North Star here? What's your purpose? What's your mission? Why are you here? Who do you serve? Why do you serve them? Really to make sure that you are in line with, because there is also where you can see that my values do not really go hand in hand with the values that we have in this business environment or at this office or whatever it might be. And that will show up. And then it's time for you to take a decision. Okay, should I stay or should I actually find something else?
Right.
What I can say is that if you decide to stay, even though, and of course it can be that those values, they might go hand in hand, even though, but if they kind of really don't go together and you decide to stay, that's not a good idea.
Right. I see.
That will make you burn out. That will impact your body, your health, everything. And it will also impact your performance, and it will also impact the rest of the team. So it's so important that we actually talk about those things, and not as something that we have as a poster on the wall, but something that we really talk about. What does it mean for you? How does our values connect to your values?
Right. Gotcha. So I like to close with every episode with a similar question. And so say a person woke up this morning and they've been a person that's been running since 2019, since right before the pandemic started. What do you want them to know? Not do, but just to know before the end of this podcast.
You are not alone. I think that is the first thing. You are not alone. And there are things that you can do. And the first thing that you should do is just to take a moment, Breathe in for 3, hold it for 3, breathe out for 6. That is the easiest way for you to regulate your nervous system. It will impact your pace, it will impact your body rhythm, it will impact everything. So really to understand that you are not alone. And I would also say that if you haven't already started to get support and help to really turn this around, it's better to do it today than to do it in 3 years or 5 years, because it's easier to change the way that you are acting, reacting, moving forward. The sooner the better.
Well, and if you found yourself here to this podcast, you know it's important. So get started today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hanna, for being on the UnCeiling You. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate the honesty that we both brought. It's good to have actual stories. And I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
Over the last 2 weeks of the trust tax investigation, we've uncovered 2 important truths. In week 1, we learned that burnout rarely begins with a collapse. It begins with a quiet realization. I can't keep doing it this way. This week, we asked a different question. How did we get here? And our guests have given us remarkable answers. It's not through one catastrophic event. It's not because we're not resilient enough, but because over time, we adapt. We learn to meet expectations before we meet our own needs. Our nervous system begins to accept constant pressure as normal. Our identity becomes tied to achievement, responsibility, and being the person everyone can count on. These adaptations don't happen overnight. They happen so gradually that they begin to feel like it's who we are. But they're not who we are. They're what we've learned. Next week, we take the investigation one step further. If these adaptations developed inside us, what role does our organization play in reinforcing them? How do well-intentioned workplaces unintentionally reward the very behaviors that eventually become the trust tax? That's where we're headed next. Until then, I want to leave you with one question. What have you adapted to that no longer serves you? Because the moment you recognize that adaptation is the moment you realize it can change. I'll see you next time as we continue the trust tax investigation.